The air in this house used to smell like lavender and expensive candles. Now, it just feels like heavy, suffocating silence. My name is Amanda, and as I sit here, my hands are shaking so violently I can barely hold my thoughts together. They say your life can change in a heartbeat, but mine shattered in a single silent choice. I made a mistake, not the kind of mistake where you forget to lock the back door or let the milk spoil in the fridge. I made the kind of mistake that burns down your entire future and leaves you standing in the ashes of a life you once loved. I am 28 years old, living in a city that looks like a postcard. The streets are lined with ancient, towering trees, and the parks are emerald green. It was supposed to be the perfect backdrop for a perfect marriage. For 5 years, I was Mrs. Mark Harrison. Mark is the kind of man women dream of, tall, steady, and relentlessly kind. He is a provider, a businessman who climbs mountains for his career so he could give me the world. We had the car, the designer clothes, and the beautiful echoing house. I thought that was happiness. But I learned the hard way that a large house is just a hollow box if the person you love isn't inside it. Mark traveled constantly. At first, I was his biggest cheerleader, but eventually, the pride turned into a dull, aching loneliness. The silence of our home became a physical weight. I remember a particular stretch when the wind began to howl through the eaves and the leaves turned brittle and brown. Mark told me he was heading to London for 3 weeks. 21 days of empty hallways. I felt a cold dread settle in my chest, a desperate need for human warmth that I didn't know how to voice. He kissed me goodbye at the airport, promising a tropical vacation when he returned, and I watched him disappear into the crowd. I drove home to a house so quiet I could hear the mechanical heartbeat of the wall clock. Tick, tock, tock. It felt like a countdown to something I couldn't see coming. 2 days into the isolation, the phone shattered the silence. It was David, Mark's brother. David is the polar opposite of my husband. Where Mark is structure and logic, David is chaos and charisma. He lives a nomadic life, drifting from city to city, fueled by laughter and wine. He told me he was in town for a job interview and asked if he could stay for a few nights. I hesitated. My internal alarm bells didn't ring, they whispered, but David was family. I wanted to be a good wife, a hospitable hostess. I told him the door was open. When David arrived that evening, he brought a gust of energy that the house desperately needed. He smelled of wood smoke and expensive red wine. We cooked together, the kitchen filling with the scent of garlic and the sound of bubbling sauce. For the first time in months, I wasn't eating in front of a television. We sat across from each other, drinking wine, and David told me stories that made me laugh until my chest ached. Mark was always so tired when he came home. He forgot how to tell jokes. David, however, looked at me with eyes that were a mirror of Mark's, but filled with a dangerous, playful light. He told me I had a beautiful laugh. I felt a flush of heat rise to my cheeks, a feeling of being seen that I had been starving for. The next night after his interview, the atmosphere shifted. We were celebrating his success with pizza and a movie, sitting close on the sofa. The movie ended, the credits rolled in silence, and the air between us became thick and electric. I knew I should have stood up. I should have walked to my room, locked the door, and called my husband, but the loneliness was a predator, and that night it won. David reached out and touched my hand, whispering that I was special. In that one crystalline second, I could have changed the course of my life. If I had a time machine, I would scream at that younger version of myself to run. Instead, I stayed. We kissed, and then we crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. The morning sun was a cruel witness. I woke up with a crushing weight on my chest. I walked into the kitchen to find David staring into a cup of coffee, the ghost of the night before hanging between us like a shroud. I felt physically sick. I loved Mark. He was my rock, my partner, my soul. Why had I traded 5 years of devotion for one night of weakness? I told David to leave. I watched him pack his bags and walk out the door, promising that we would never speak of this again. I thought I could wash the sin away. I scrubbed the floors, laundered the sheets until my hands were raw, and prayed that the secret would stay buried in the floorboards. When Mark returned from London, he was a man transformed by success. He had been promoted, no more traveling. He bought me a beautiful scarf and told me he wanted to start a family. He was so happy, so pure in his devotion, that every smile he gave me felt like a knife in my heart. Then, the sickness started. The smell of coffee, once my favorite thing, made me gag. I bought a pregnancy test with trembling hands, the pharmacist smiling at me as if I were the luckiest woman in the world. I waited in the bathroom, watching the clock. Tick, tock, 2 blue lines. I sat on the cold tile and did the math. The dates didn't lie. Mark had been gone. David had been here. I was carrying the child of my husband's brother. I let out a silent scream, pressing my palms against my mouth. I was a traitor. I was a liar. And now I was a mother to a secret that would eventually grow a face. The day I told Mark was the day my world ended. He came home with red roses, beaming with the news that he was done with the road forever. He wanted to build our dream. When I told him I was pregnant, he wept with joy until I told him the truth. I saw the light die in his eyes. I saw his soul break in real time. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I've ever heard. When I said David's name, Mark didn't just get angry. He became a stranger. He threw a vase against the wall, the shattering glass a perfect metaphor for our marriage. He told me to get out. He told me to go to his brother. But David didn't want me. When I called him, terrified and alone, he told me he wasn't a father. He told me he had no money and no room for a mistake like me. He changed his number and vanished. I spent the rest of my pregnancy in my mother's house, watching my belly grow and feeling the weight of my choices. Mark filed for divorce. He never looked back, and I don't blame him. 2 years have passed since that night. I live in a tiny, cramped apartment now. I work double shifts as a waitress, my feet aching and my bank account near empty. I don't have the designer clothes or the nice car anymore. Sometimes I see Mark on social media. He looks happy. He has a woman by his side who looks like she has never told a lie in her life. It hurts, but I'm glad. He deserves a heart that is whole. I have a daughter now. I named her Hope. She has those same blue eyes, the eyes that belonged to both the man I loved and the man who ruined me. She is innocent, a beautiful soul born from a storm of regret. She is the reason I wake up. She is my second chance. I'm telling you this because loneliness is a liar. It tells you that you deserve a moment of comfort, even if it costs you your soul. It tells you that secrets stay hidden. But truth is like water. It always finds a way out. If you are feeling lonely, talk to your partner. If you are unhappy, leave. But don't build a life on a foundation of lies. I learned that you can replace a broken glass, but you can never truly mend broken trust. I walk past my old house sometimes. I see the lights on in the windows where I used to live, and I wonder who is in that kitchen now. I wonder if I had just said no, would I be inside, warm and loved? But I cannot live in the what if. I have to live in the now. Now, I am a single mother. I am tired. I am judged. But for the first time in a long time, I am honest. I don't have to hide from the mirror. I see a woman who made a devastating mistake. But I also see a woman who survived it. I hold Hope close to me every night, and I whisper to her that we will be okay. My life isn't a fairy tale, and there is no prince coming to save me. But there is truth, and there is light, and there is the strength to keep walking. Please, cherish what you have. Be the person your partner thinks you are. Because once the trust is gone, all the roses in the world can't bring it back. I've shared my heart with you today in the hopes that my tears can save you from shedding your own. Take care of your heart, take care of your family, and above all else, live a life that doesn't require a secret. Would you like me to adapt this story into a different perspective, such as Mark's or David's, to see the emotional impact from another angle?